Hi, this is Fuad Abasov, a broker with Right at Home Realty, and this is your monthly real estate statistics. Whether you are a homeowner, buyer, seller, investor, or just curious about what's going on out there, this update will give you a clear picture of what's been happening in the market. Let's dive in. Greater Toronto Area real estate market is navigating uncertainty driven by the upcoming federal election, recent trade tensions, and ongoing economic instability. Potential policy shifts around housing affordability, interest rates, immigration, and capital gains taxation are creating a wait-and-see environment for some buyers and sellers. Combined with continued inflationary pressures and global market volatility, confidence is mixed, and timing has become a major consideration. Some buyers are holding off for more clarity, while others are seeing current conditions as an opportunity to negotiate. The market feels transitional, and many are watching closely to see how the political and economic landscape will influence interest rates and housing policy in the months ahead. Home sales across the GTA were down this March. Toronto Real Estate Board reported just over 5,000 homes sold, which is a 23% drop compared to last year. That's pretty significant. But at the same time, new listings were up nearly 29%. So we're seeing way more supply than demand right now, which is pushing us further into a buyer's market. Average home prices are sitting around 1.09 million, which is actually a slight increase from February, but still down compared to last March. When it comes to freehold properties, your typical detached, semis, and townhomes, we're seeing more stability. Homes in established neighborhoods are holding their value pretty well. They're still in demand, especially in parts of the GTA where inventory isn't exploding. But sellers do need to be realistic. Overpricing right now just won't fly. Semis and townhomes in the range of $900,000 to $1.1 million are selling well and faster, especially if they're renovated. Now, let's talk condos. This segment is really feeling the pinch. Sales were down almost 40% year over year, and inventory, it's ballooned by about 70%. So, if you're thinking of selling a condo right now, just know, there's a lot of competition out there. Prices have dropped about 2.8% over the year and just under 1% months over months. That said, the luxury condo market is holding strong. Demand is still healthy, especially in premium areas. It's like two separate markets. The everyday condos are struggling a bit, but luxury is steady. The luxury real estate market in Toronto and surrounding areas continues to demonstrate resilience despite broader market slowdowns. High-end buyers in neighborhoods like Forest Hill, Rosedale, The Bridle Path, Oakville, and King City remain active, often transacting in all-cash deals that sidestep interest rate concerns. These clients prioritize exclusivity, land, architecture, and long-term value, especially with inventory levels still relatively tight at the upper end of the market. While days on the market have increased slightly, well-presented and appropriately priced luxury properties are still commanding solid attention and competitive offers, particularly those with unique features, privacy, and turnkey finishes. Now, let's shift to rentals, because this market is very active. Although rental prices have seen a slight dip recently, rental demand is still there. If we take a look at this graph comparing condo versus freehold rental prices in Toronto over the past 10 years, an interesting trend emerges. Freehold rent prices have returned to levels we last saw in June of 2021, while condo rents are holding steady around June 2022 pricing. A lot of would-be buyers are choosing to rent instead of buy, waiting to see where prices and interest rates go. Even though we had a slight drop in prices, that demand is keeping the rental market tight. On the new construction and affordable housing side, there has been some positive movement. The federal government just announced over $2 billion in low-interest loans to help build nearly 5,000 new rental homes in Toronto, over 1,000 of which will be affordable units. That's a big deal, especially with affordability still being a huge issue. Toronto is still continuing its push with the public developer delivery model, which aims to make affordable housing a reality by taking more control over the development process. And now, let's take a closer look at detached home sales in Toronto and surrounding areas. An average selling price of detached home in Toronto in March was $1.68 million, 1.5% decrease compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 14.6%. New listings were up by a whopping 42%. On average, it takes 21 days for a detached home to be sold in Toronto today. In Vaughan, average selling price of detached home compared to last March went down by almost 1% and was sitting at $1.75 million in March. Sales were down by 31%. New listings were up by 24%. On average, it takes almost 3 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Vaughan today. Average price of detached home in Richmond Hill in March was $1.77 million, 4.5% decrease compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 42%. New listings were up by 37%. On average, it takes 19 days for a detached home to be sold in Richmond Hill. In Mississauga, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.57 million, 1% decrease compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 21.7%. New listings were up by 30%. On average, it takes 22 days for a detached home to be sold in Mississauga today. Average selling price of detached home in Markham in March was $1.62 million, 10.5% decrease compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 24.5%. New listings were up by 32%. On average, it takes 3 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Markham today. In Newmarket, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.24 million, 7.4% decrease compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 55%. New listings were up by 11.4%. On average, it takes 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Newmarket today. In Aurora, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.69 million. It did not change compared to March of last year, so the prices remained almost the same. Sales, though, went down by 56%, and new listings were up by 40%. On average, it takes 16 days for a detached home to be sold in Aurora today. In Innisfil, average selling price of detached home in March was $960,000, up from $828,000 in February. Compared to last March, prices went down by almost 5%. Sales went down by 43%. New listings were increased by 9%. On average, it takes just over a month for a detached home to be sold in Innisfil today. King City, average selling price of detached home in March was almost $3 million, 22% increase compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 63%. New listings remained the same compared to last year. The amount of days on the market in King City is 10 days. Bradford, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.11 million. Prices remained the same compared to March of last year. Sales were down by 15%, and new listings were up by 22.6% compared to last March. On average, it takes just over 2 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Bradford today. Milton, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.24 million, 8% decrease compared to prices of last March. Sales were down by 35%, new listings were up by 13%. On average, it takes 26 days for a detached home to be sold in Milton today. In Stoufville, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.54 million, decrease of 9% compared to March of last year. Sales were down by almost 46%. New listings also went down by 3%. It takes on average 36 days for a detached home to be sold in Stoufville today. In Barrie, average selling price of detached home in March was $846,000, 2.3% decrease compared to prices of last March. Sales were down by 36%. New listings remained the same as it was last March. On average, it takes 1 month for a detached home to be sold in Barrie today. In Oakville, average selling price of detached home in March was $1.97 million, 2.5% decrease compared to prices of last March. Sales were down by 46%, new listings were up by 17%. On average, it takes 33 days for a detached home to be sold in Oakville today. So, let's summarize. If you're buying, you've got more options and negotiating power than we've seen in a while. If you're selling, strategic pricing and preparation are key, especially with inventory climbing. If you're renting or investing, this could be a great time to take advantage of a softer condo market or capitalize on increased rental demand. As always, I'm here to help you navigate the shifting market with honest advice and the latest data. If you'd like to receive your own personalized sales report about home sales in your neighborhood, please call me at 647-801-3401 or email me at sold@fuadhomes.com. Thanks for watching and see you next month.